Okay, today we're going to go through two examples of the quadratic formula. We went through this yesterday, but I just want to give you two more examples. And then after these two examples, I'll get you to work on the sheet that I gave you yesterday. Okay, so here's the quadratic formula up above. Okay, and there's the actual example. I'll give you a couple seconds to write it down, okay, and then we'll start going through. All right, so if we look at this one, okay, we have a, b, and c that we have to figure out. The a is the coefficient in front of the x squared, so that a is 2. B is the coefficient in front of the x, so there's b. And then finally we have c on the end. Okay? So our a is 2, our b is 2, and our c is -4. So now we simply sub these values into our quadratic equation and see what we get. Okay, so negative b, so this is -2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so b again is 2, so that becomes 2 squared, minus 4 onto a is 2, and finally onto c is -4. All over 2 onto a, and again a is 2. Okay? So now we've got it all filled in. Now we're just going to reduce it and see what numbers we get. Again, it's -2 plus or minus the square root. 2 squared gives me 4. Then over here, -4 times 2 gives me -8. -8 times -4 gives me +32. Okay. All divided by 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. And this is x equals in both cases. And we're figuring out the two things, two x values to get our roots of the equation. Next, x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 32 is 36, all divided by 4. Okay. So then we have x equals -2 plus or minus square root of 36 is 6, all over 4. So then we have two values for x here. Two roots of the equation. I have -2 plus 6 all over 4. Okay. And I also have -2 minus 6 all over 4. -2 plus 6 gives you 4. 4 divided by 4 gives you 1. Okay, so there's one of the roots. Down here I have a -2 minus 6. -2 subtract 6 gives you -8. And -8 divided by 4 gives you -2. Okay, so there's that, example number 1. One more example, and then I'll let you go on to the assignment. Okay, here's our second example. -x squared plus 5x subtract 2. Okay. So again, we have to figure out what our a and our b and our c are. Here is our a. It's a -1. Okay, there's no number in front of the x squared, so that means that it's a 1. Okay, and it's a -1. The number next to the x, which is our b, is equal to 5. And the number on the end, without any x at all, is -2, so c is equal to -2. Okay. So now we sub it into our quadratic equation to get the two roots. So negative b, so I end up with a negative 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's going to end up being 5 squared. Subtract 4 onto a is negative 1, c is negative 2, all over 4 onto a, which is negative 1. Okay. Now we'll start to simplify it, okay, which is, we're going to simplify what's underneath the square root and, of course, the 4 on the negative 1. So we end up with x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, this is going to give me 25. Negative 4 times negative 1 is going to give me positive 4. Positive 4 onto negative 2 is going to give me negative 8. So I end up with a subtract 8. All over 4 onto negative 1, which is negative 4. At this point, I would notice I have a negative both top and bottom, so I can just make them both a positive. Next step, we simplify further what's under the square root. So we end up with 5 plus or minus 25 subtract 8 gives you 17, all over 4. Now, we stop to look. In the previous example, we had a nice number under the square root. It was 36. Okay? You can take the square root of 36. It is 6. Okay? In this case, I have 17. Okay? There is no even number square root of 17. So what we're going to do is leave it just as that. Okay? We're not going to reduce it. You can, in your calculator, figure it out, and it'll give you a decimal. Okay? But an acceptable answer is this. X equals my 5. And one of them is going to be plus square root 17, all over 4. Okay? And my other root is x equals the 5 minus the square root 17, all over 4. Okay? And you just leave it like that. Okay? There's no need to figure out in your calculator what the actual decimal is. You can leave it just like that, and I'll take that as the correct answer. Okay? So no need to go any further than that. So when you go through the assignment, okay, and you get these square roots that don't come out evenly, okay, just leave them just like this. Okay. So finish up that assignment. It'll be due at the end of Wednesday's class, and I'll give you more time on Wednesday to work on it and work away in today's class.